Good afternoon, everybody. As you know, today I took action to follow through on our commitment to fully restore the Greenbelt lands that were removed last year. As you know, a few moments ago, I introduced the Greenbelt Statute Law Amendment Act 2023, and if passed, the bill would restore the 15 parcels of land that were redesignated or removed from the Greenbelt and the Oak Ridges Moraine areas, and enhance protections of these areas to an unprecedented degree by making sure that any future boundary changes can only be made through an open, public, and transparent legislative process. So this means that going forward, any proposed changes to the Greenbelt boundary would require the approval of the Ontario legislature. Our proposed legislation would also restore protections previously provided by the Dufferin Rouge Agricultural Preserved Act 2005. It maintains the 9,400 acres in the Greenbelt that were added when other parcels were removed in 2022. And this includes the Paris Galt Moraine and 13 urban river valley areas in the Greater Toronto area. Now, to inform and complement these proposals, we will be engaging with Indigenous communities, and we have launched a consultation through the Environmental Registry of Ontario and the Ontario Regulatory Reform, Regulatory Registry, excuse me. Now, we remain committed to ensuring the public and municipalities are informed on how and when the lands will be returned to the Greenbelt. With respect to the 10-year review, which is separate from this proposal, we will ensure that the next 10-year review of the Greenbelt is led by an impartial, nonpartisan group of experts in conservation, agriculture, and environmentalists. It will be focused on the preservation of our water resources, protection of natural heritage, and preservation of farmland. What we're trying to do and what we will ensure is that the politics are taken out of the review process. The Auditor General will be consulted to ensure that the review is fair and aligned with recent recommendations to improve the process. And I will, of course, be providing some additional details on the review at a later date. And with that, I can take any questions.
So, Minister, just to be clear,
Sure.
There's no exceptions, there's no loopholes to get land out of the Greenbelt unless it's through consultation and legislation in the future.
That's right.
What about your government's proposed Highway 413 would traverse Greenbelt land? What about that land, sir?
The Act, as it was established by the previous government, allows for infrastructure to be undertaken in the Greenbelt area.
Is there some irony here, Minister? You're essentially doing everything that you did wrong, and you're putting it into this legislation.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Look, I've said in the House on a number of occasions that we undertook a process or a public policy decision that clearly was not supported by the people of the province of Ontario. The process was not supported. The Premier has been clear that that was not an appropriate process. Underlying that was our desire to make progress on building 1.5 million homes, but we are listening. We are ensuring that that going forward, that any process with respect to the Greenbelt is done in the most public and open fashion that we can provide through the Legislative Assembly, which would require passage of a piece of legislation through the legislature.
Minister, though, it begs the question, why didn't you do it all this way in the first place?
Yeah, look, I understand that. We were seized with and remain, frankly. I've said it constantly and I continue to say it. We want to make progress on building 1.5 million homes, but ultimately this was not how the people of the province of Ontario wanted us to go about doing that. So we've listened. We're returning all of the lands.
Benefiting to the tune of $8.3 billion.
I think what we've said is the process was not one that the people of the province of Ontario supported. I think overwhelmingly we're hearing across, and I'm hearing it across the province, frankly, not just here in the GTA. I'm hearing it from communities all over, that they want to help participate in building 1.5 million homes. I'm hearing it from small communities in Northern Ontario. They're saying, don't forget about us when you're talking about building 1.5 million homes. I'm hearing it from large and small communities, and I'm going to remain focused on that. So look, while this is not going to be part of that, obviously, I'm optimistic at the same time that the cooperation and the advice that I'm getting from municipalities across the province will help us lead to the ultimate goal of building more homes for people.
Minister, can you talk about now the argument that the Premier and your predecessor and you have made that these Greenbelt lands were necessary to build those 1.5 million? Are you acknowledging that all the experts and all the reports have said that that was not true? You're acknowledging that you were wrong about that?
Look, what I'm saying is this, that we are going to redouble our efforts across the province of Ontario. Look, we just had in Mississauga just the other day a community that rejected increasing density in a very real way. And I'm saying to my municipal partners, okay, we hear you, but make no mistake about it, we are going to redouble our efforts to build homes around transit and transportation infrastructure across the province. Everybody has to do their part in helping us build 1.5 million homes. Nobody can take a pass on it. I've got a lot of messages from people who have, from municipal councils in some parts of the GTA that say their community has already done its part. Well, no, we're going to move very quickly on the housing affordability task force recommendations. Many of the municipalities are sending me back their top 5. We sent a letter to them earlier. What are the top 5 things that we can move on? And we're going to move really quickly on. We're going to double down because we're going to make progress on that.
And on the review,
Yep.
so when the review was first announced, the Premier said there were 700 or so outstanding requests for Greenbelt removals that would be considered in this review. I think you hinted at the same. Is that still the case? This review you're talking about now with the environmentalists will look at 700 more carve-outs from the Greenbelt?
Look, what we're going to do is put together an outside panel from government. It will be, as I said, it will be based on the principles of the Greenbelt. As I said, preservation of water resources, preservation of agriculture, and protection of natural heritage. We will look outside of government to experts in those particular areas. We will submit the proposed makeup to the Auditor General and the Environmental Commissioner to ensure that the process is a supportable process, that it is a fair process, and we will let them do their work. In the meantime, through this legislation that we're introducing today, a consultation process will begin with the municipalities that are impacted, and with First Nations communities, with respect to the legislation that we've
Minister, on Schedule 3, who is being protected from personal liability?
We said earlier, similar to in 2005, we followed the provisions in 2005 that protected the government, that provided enhanced immunity protections for the government, similar to what was done in 2005 when the original act was brought forward.
So you yourself, the former Minister of Housing, the Premier, everyone has been protected from liability?
Similar provisions as to were in place in 2005. There's not a gap between what was in place in 2005 and what is in place with this legislation.
So, to be clear, though, that means that no member of the Ontario government can be held liable for the changes that were made to the Greenbelt in this round.
That is what the strength and immunity allows. It does protect government from outside claims on this in this area, similar to 2005.
When are we going to get a debate in the House on the reprimand for Steve Clark?
We tabled the motion, asked for unanimous consent to do that, and the opposition
That
turned it down.
motion was for no debate. Why are you afraid of having a debate about a reprimand for Steve Clark?
Well, the motion was to accept the recommendations of the Integrity Commissioner Wholesale.
So
And it was
will
turned down.
there be a reprimand for Steve Clark?
As I said, it was we brought forward a.
So you're just going to try once, and
So-
now we're going to drop it.
I guess if you'd like me to finish, I'll complete. Let me know when you're done.
Okay.
You done?
As soon as
we brought
we hear an
forward-
actual answer, or is there going to be
Next question?
a reprimand?
Minister, have you heard anything from developers? Any pushback on this so far?
No, I think it was clear that this was coming. The Premier announced it in Niagara Falls that we were doing this. If anything, I think they're looking towards us now. Home builders are looking towards us to ensure that we move quickly on the recommendations of the Housing Supply Action Plan. They want us to move quickly on that to provide certainty. But I'm also hearing from municipalities, frankly, that are saying, "All right, let's move on. Let's get this behind us. Let's move on, and let's get our work done."
Minister, developers make requests to remove more land from the Greenbelt as part of the review process. Will the government entertain those or look into those
To
requests?
say that will all be done by an independent panel outside of government entirely. That'll be up to the panel to decide, but any request will be based on the the three principles underlying the creation of the Greenbelt, as I said, protection of farming, protection of water resources, and protection of natural heritage. As I said, we'll have outside experts clear of government who will review that process, and we will submit that to the Environmental Commissioner both before and at the conclusion of the process, and any changes will have to be made through a legislative process and full debate in the Legislative Assembly.
Minister, is
Yep.
the removal of the regulation that to date is how land gets added to the Greenbelt, is that a consequence of the fact that going forward there will have to be legislative changes to that, or does it finalize the Greenbelt?
Well, I think it's both, right? So, in order for a government to make legislative changes or to make boundary changes in the future, they will have to bring legislation forward in the House. That'll have to be debated and go through the committee process. That will then also commence a posting on the regulatory environmental registry as well. So it's enhancing the process by making it so that it's not solely on regulation, it's not solely through order in council. It is something that will have to happen through a bill being introduced in the legislature.
And have any
So-
staff in your office or in your ministry spoken to the RCMP yet as part of its investigation?
Look, as I said in the House, we're prepared to work with the RCMP. To this date, they have not contacted us. They've not asked for anything. They've not been in contact with us at all. If they do, we will stand ready to assist in any way that they
Nobody's
request.
conducted an interview with the RCMP at this point.
The RCMP has not contacted us yet. No.
Why are you moving to censure Sarah Jama? I mean, she's apologized, the NDP leader has accepted it, so why are you moving forward?
Yeah, look, I think it's we did this in the last session of the legislature when Mr. Hillier said equally inflammatory remarks. The House moved very, very quickly. In that instance, he attacked a Muslim federal cabinet minister. In this instance, it is different. Ms. Jama, the last I checked, had not taken down the original statement as she was asked to do by her leader. And as such, we will be moving forward consistent as we were in the last parliament in this parliament.
Minister, can you clarify on the Duffins Rouge piece? That what you're doing today, does that restore exactly status quo ante what was in place before? Because I've just read the legislation.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
So what existed, the protections that existed by that legislation are now being restored exactly word for word as they
That's
were?
right. We're restoring we're restoring the draft. Yeah, absolutely.
Back to Sarah Jama for a moment. What if she doesn't do what you're asking? Are there repercussions?
The motion, I don't have it in front of me, but the motion would give the Speaker permission not to recognize Ms. Jama in the House until she apologizes to the House for the remarks that she's made.
So essentially that.
Similar to the same motion that this House unanimously passed with Mr. Hillier.
So is it essentially a fait accompli because you have a majority?
No, we will debate that. We'll debate it in the House, and we'll see how the House goes.
But assuming it passes.
I think it's pretty safe to say that Conservatives are feeling very passionate about this, and that it will see a very large, almost unanimous, I would suspect, support from the Conservative caucus.
So assuming it passes, Minister, does that mean she will no longer be able to speak in the legislature?
She, as I said, similar to the previous motion with Mr. Hillier, she'll be able to apologize. It's a bit different in that Mr. Hillier was asked to apologize to Minister Alghabra in a fashion that the Speaker was happy with, to ensure that it was a sincere apology. In this instance, we are calling on Ms. Jama to apologize to the legislature, and as I said, we'll debate that later on this week.
Mr. Calandra, can you give us an update on the other 14 recommendations from the Auditor General? Where is the government on those?
We are all for this. This will complete once this bill is passed. And to be clear as well, sorry, I'm not sure if I said that. The bill it is being posted to the ERO, so the bill will sit on the order paper for at least 30 days while the consultations are undertaken with through the environmental registry. But this once this bill is concluded, we will have undertaken a full all of the recommendations of the auditor. But ultimately, look, let me just say this, Colin. It's we were you know, as was in the Integrity Commissioner's report, we were focused on building homes, right? And but this wasn't the way to do it. But it is not going to distract us from what the ultimate goal is building homes. We're doubling down with our efforts with our municipal partners, and I think that ultimately we can make significant progress towards meeting the goals.
It hasn't been very long since the Auditor General's
Yep.
report. How can you guarantee that some of the things like ensuring no personal email addresses are being used for government communication? How can you make sure that that is being completely adhered to? What
Colin,
evidence does your government have to offer to make sure that that actually has been adhered to?
Look, we've said that we would undertake all 15 recommendations. As you know, this is the last step in that, and we will ensure that all 15 recommendations of the Auditor General are implemented, and then going a bit further, ensuring that in the future, when it comes to Greenbelt, any changes to the Greenbelt, that it is put in legislation as opposed to regulation.
How are voters sort of to track the government's success on this to make sure that every word, every recommendation has been implemented in full? I mean, to date, other than you guys saying that you're implementing the 14 out of the 15 recommendations and now the 15th, we haven't really seen much concrete evidence. So how are voters to know and to be able to verify for themselves that you're undertaking all
Look,
of those?
ultimately, there is still more work to be done. We are moving on all 15 of the recommendations. I think this is the one that we've been seized with over the last little bit. I think this is the biggest. Well, I don't want to say that. That's a bad choice of words. This is one of the for many people, one of the most important steps on that process, bringing this legislation forward. So we will continue to be we'll continue to be open on this process, because look, ultimately what I keep hearing, I hear it all the time, even in my own writing, is like, don't be distracted. You made a mistake. Yes, we made a mistake, but don't be distracted from what you got to get done. Whether that's housing, whether it's long-term care, focus on that, but do it in a way that brings people with you. And I think we hear that message loud and clear.
Do you think your legislation will appease voters?
Look, I think I don't know if it's about appeasing voters, if I can say that. And I know. Look, I know the Premier acknowledged we made a mistake. I see Colin. Is it about appeasing voters? Look, we wanted to build homes, right? We wanted to build homes. That is foundational to everything that we've been doing. Let me just finish because it's important. It's foundational to everything we've been doing since 2018, right? Will it appease voters? I think what will ultimately appease or please voters is if we make progress on building 1.5 million homes. If in 2026 they look back and say that they're in better shape than they were before we took office, then I think that's how voters, I hope, will judge whether the government has lived up to their expectations or not.
But Minister, you refer to this as a mistake. It was one heck of a mistake that has led to a potential windfall, a criminal investigation, a process that was more than flawed. It was a brutal process. Like, that's not just a mistake.
Look, ultimately, as I said, it was a mistaken process. We're fixing that process. This legislation goes beyond fixing just one process. It codifies in law the boundaries of the Greenbelt.
So even you can't do it again?
So
Repeat
that
these
any
mistakes?
government that wants to bring forward changes to the Greenbelt in the future is going to have to do it through legislation. But ultimately, at the same time, it was important that we move forward. It was important that we do this so that we can continue to focus on the priorities of the people of the province of Ontario. And look, I won't be straight. When I was long-term care minister, I said I'll remove obstacles, and we'll remove obstacles to building long-term care. And now we have over 18,000 long-term care beds being built across the province of Ontario in a very short time period. And the same has to go with housing. Like, we're seeing enormous economic activity in different parts of the province, and it has to. And housing has to accompany this, whether it's what we're seeing in St. Thomas and some of the parts of Northern Ontario, whether it's the influx of immigration to help us meet some of these goals that we have on the economy. We got to get this done. This takes that out of the way. It puts a process in that I think is highly defensible, and that will be an open process, but at the same time allows us to begin once again to continue focusing on the priorities.
Can we go back to
Sure, yeah.
the former Minister Clark? So you guys wanted a reprimand with no debate. The NDP wanted debate. So what happens? It just stays frozen in time forever, or?
It stays there until it's called back again. We were very clear that we accepted the recommendations of the Integrity Commissioner. I didn't think it would be a big surprise that we were going to accept those recommendations, and it was turned down. So it remains on the order paper, and it can be called at a later date.
When
Will
will
he
that
be back in
when
question
does the
period?
government
I don't
intend
think
to
he's
do
been
it?
in question period since.
The passage of the bill, as I said earlier, it will sit on the order paper for at least 30 days because of the requirement through the ERO, Environmental Registry, and then we will move to passage at that point. Sorry.
Just ask Cynthia's question in a slightly different way. Are
Sure.
you hoping that this legislation closes the Greenbelt chapter for your government?
I'd be lying to you if I said no, but I do. What it is a reflection of the fact that we made a mistake. I'm acknowledging that mistake. It was a process that could not be supported. It was a process that took us off of what we have been trying to do for the last number of years, which is make it easier to build homes for people, make it more affordable, we're moving in the direction of refocusing and getting back on track to what we have been fighting for since 2018, and I'm hoping that that through the passage of this we can do that while at the same time understanding just how important the Greenbelt is to many people across the province of Ontario, and ensuring that in any future changes to the Greenbelt is done in an open process, one that is supported by experts in the field, and not one that is done by government unilaterally. I hear the bells, so I think I've got to go. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your time.